What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Power Play with CJ. We're focusing on the 2018 Hockey Hall of Fame class. Obviously, the 2017 class is going in this month, headlined by Team Solani and Paul Briea, as it's only fitting that they go in together. But we're going to talk about some other players, a few snubs, and some first-timers that I think have the potential to be the headliners in the 2018 class. So, without further ado, let's start with Jeremy Roenick. JR is one of those guys, everyone either loves him or hates him. I think he was like that. He was like that as a player. He was like that as an analyst. I love JR. Part of it is he's a Massachusetts guy. And, kind of plays the game the way I tried to play as a kid, obviously, a lot better than me. But, you look at what JR did during his career, 50-goal scorer twice with the Blackhawks in the early 90s before the dead puck era really set in. Helped the Blackhawks go to the Stanley Cup final in 92. 500 career goals, helped establish the Phoenix Coyotes as a legitimate franchise, which they've obviously taken a few steps back from. Went to the Eastern Conference Finals with Philly. I mean, I love JR as a player. The numbers are good. Factor in the dead puck era. Factor in, that he was such a gritty, hard guy to play against, despite being, one of the more skilled guys in the league. And again, huge bias here, not only being an American, but being a Massachusetts guy, but being a Boston guy. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think he'll get in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think this is a class that we see JR finally break through the Hall of Fame. We've seen that with American players. I mean, it took Phil Housley, who was a much more deserving candidate, no disrespect to Roenick. It took Housley, 7, almost 10 years. So, we'll see what happens. But again, I think JR belongs. I think JR will get in. I just do not think this will be the class that he gets in on. I think anything is with Roenick. I think he rubbed a lot of people in the media the wrong way. When he's a player. That's just my observation. And how self-righteous those dickheads can be. So, again, one of those things. We'll see what happens in the next, part of the election process. But I don't think this is a class we see Jeremy Roenick get into the Hall of Fame on. Rod the Bod Brind'Amour. This is an interesting one for me because I thought for the longest time he belonged to the Hall of Fame because he was such a dominant two-way player, but I think his defensive acumen was kind of overrated. And I'm not calling him an overrated player. I just think everyone, is so quick to anoint him, the best defensive center in the league for, extended period of time. And once you get stuck with that label, it works in your favor for a long time. That's not a knock on Brind'Amour at all. Obviously, he captained the Carolina Hurricanes to their only Stanley Cup championship in team history. Went to the final with Carolina another year. Was on that Philly team that went to the final. Lost to Detroit. It's actually amazing in those playoffs. For the Flyers. So I have a hard time keeping him out for a few reasons. I don't think he gets in. And he's a 2-time Selke winner, yada yada yada. Here's my thing: is everyone in the Boston area and throughout hockey is always refers to Bergeron as future Hall of Famer Patrice Bergeron. And they're not wrong. But my thing is, in 10, 15 years, if Bergeron's in the Hall of Fame, how do we keep Brind'Amour out? Because I think at their best, Brind'Amour was a better player than Patrice Bergeron. And that's not a knock on Bergeron. It's just the reality of the situation. Maybe I'm looking at it through a weird angle, but that's going to be my thing. Again, kind of like JR. I think eventually Brind'Amour gets in because I think Bergeron's going to get in way down the line, which I know sounds like a fucked up way to look at it. But, I think this is the way it's going to break itself out. And I think, we're going to look back and say, wow, Brind'Amour was every bit the player Bergeron is, if not better. So, not getting in on this class, but again, kind of like Roenick. I think down the line there's this possibility, especially now with two-way players on all this shit. You're willing to look at, and it's not even a knock. I think people are willing to look at players' whole body of work as opposed to what their statistics are. And Brind'Amour's statistics: 400 plus goals on the show. Played a lot of his prime during the dead puck era. And was able to put up some pretty good numbers in Philly and in Carolina. Obviously got to start with St. Louis. But again, I loved watching Brind'Amour. I loved how great he was defensively. I loved how great he was, on the face-off dot. One of the best face-off men in NHL history, if you ask me. But again, I just think the last few years he was in the league, he kind of coasted on, great defensive player. When, I know we're so quick to discredit plus-minus, but, over his last 2 years, he was a combined minus 52. Not good. Not ideal. So, again, I like Rod the Bod, but don't see him getting in on this class. Theo Fleury. Theron Wallace Fleury. I'm everyone knows how much I love Theo as a player. Obviously, anything that has to do with the power play has a number 14 in it for the most part because of Fleury and Briea too. But again, Stanley Cup champion '89 with the Flames in his rookie year, 50 goals scorer in '91, 455 career goals, over 1,000 points, better than a point per game player in both the regular season and the playoffs. This is a guy that, again, part of his career was spent during the dead puck era, so that definitely affected his offensive numbers. And then obviously we all know the demons he fought off the ice, in terms of his cocaine addiction and all the problems he had stemming from the sexual abuse he suffered at the hands of Graham James, when he was a junior. And I think you look at his victories off the ice, what he's done to help survivors of sexual abuse. And I know you're taken out. You're supposed to take out like the off ice with these guys, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to do it. And if you're gonna look at guys, personal transgressions to the negative to hurt their cases, then I think you gotta look what Fleury overcame and all the lives he's helped, and the fact that his numbers are there, they're not that far off from being sure thing Hall of Fame. I have a hard time keeping him out, and I think this is a class he gets in on. Again, I really just have a gut feeling on this. I think this is a class we see Theo Fleury get in on. I think he's going to be one of the 4 inductees. And again, twice he averaged 2 points a game in a playoff series. It's pretty good. Obviously, Calgary's won, I think, 3 playoff series since they traded him, or 4 anyway. It's just he's one of the greatest players in that team's history. Obviously, I'd say right behind Jerome McGinley and Al McInnes, both of whom he played with in Calgary. So, I think this is the year we see Theo go to the Hall of Fame and really kind of have his story come full circle. And again, I'm biased because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But you look at what he did in terms of being 5'6", one of the most feared, kind of power forwards in the league because he was just a, tough little motherfucker. That's pretty good, and he's really helped straighten his life out, and I think there's a place for him in hockey immortality, and just a CJ gut feeling. This is a class that we see him go to the Hall of Fame on. Now this one will piss off some people in Detroit. Ozzy Osgood. Is he a Hall of Famer? No. I think, and this is again going to piss off some people, I think he was in the right place at the right time with that organization. It's kind of like the Joe Flacco effect. Okay, quarterback, great team. The 2012 Ravens, I think that's kind of the same thing with Osgood. Good goalie. Landed on some really great teams. Won himself, 3 cups. Backed up Vernon in 97, was a starter in 98, relieved for Osgood in 2008. So, and you look at a career 905 save percentage, 249 goals against average. Those aren't Hall of Fame numbers. His best year was a 221 goals against, 913 save percentage, and that was in the height of the dead puck era. So, I have a hard time. And this isn't a knock on Osgood. Very good goalie, just not a Hall of Fame worthy goalie. I remember when Detroit was really, really good, 10, 12 years ago. You didn't fear Osgood. You looked at that lineup like, holy shit. You got Nick Lidstrom and Brian Rafalski and Chris Chell, all these guys in defense, and it'd be like, oh, Osgood's in that. Not a chance. You didn't. Osgood didn't put the fear of God into you. The defense in front of him that would keep shots to the outside would, kind of did that. Osgood himself didn't exactly scare any teams out of their boots. But again, you know what? Had a good career, played pretty well for a while. Just not exactly the kind of guy you have as a Hall of Fame goalie. And that's, again, my 2 cents on it. People in Detroit are going to be not too thrilled with me, but that's the reality of it. And, I'm going to be lazy right now and just lump somebody else in this mix. Curtis Joseph, not a Hall of Famer either. The numbers, yeah, they're great, but you look at the wins are great, excuse me. You look at 906 save percentage, 279 goals against average. Yeah, those are not Hall of Fame worthy numbers, no matter how many games you fucking win. And I know Cujo was actually in Detroit for a hot second, 2 years, but played on some okay regular season really good regular season St. Louis Blues teams that he was kind of just there on. You look at the numbers, and I know, the early 90s are a little bit different because it was still kind of that wide open running gun style. But yeah, I just don't see I just do not see Curtis Joseph or Chris Osgood getting in the Hall of Fame. Sorry. Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk. Obviously, the Tkachuk name is back being hot on the streets in the hockey circles with his two kids. Obviously, coming up as high prospects. Matthew doing his thing in Calgary, and Briea looking like he'll be a top 3 or 4 pick coming out of Boston University this season. Tkachuk, 538 goals, 2,000 penalty minutes. Led the league in goal scoring twice, even though the Rocket Richard Trophy wasn't a thing. So that kind of fucked him over in terms of not having any official NHL hardware. But I don't know how he's been kept out this long. And I get you're gonna this is you're backing another Boston guy. Well, yeah, I'm all a Catholic alum, Catholic conference guy like me. But I just when you look at how good he was during the dead puck era, which I'm gonna keep referencing, excuse me, because that was the reality of the situation for a while. You look at these guys in the 80s that had these fucking overinflated stats. Like, you cannot tell me Keith Tkachuk is not a better hockey player than Glenn Anderson. And, that's not a knock on Glenn Anderson, but, I mean, I don't know how Glenn Anderson has less goals and played in a more, offense-friendly era and is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, just because he hit the lottery and landed on Wayne Gretzky's line. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. I think Tkachuk gets in. It's going to be the same thing I said about Roenick and, I guess, Rod the Bod. I don't think it'll be this year, and this is a really stupid way of looking at it. I think his kid's coming up to kind of put his name out there again kind of helps his case. Again, doesn't make any sense, but I think Keith Tkachuk does belong in the Hall of Fame. I know his playoff numbers aren't great. Only went to the conference finals that one time with St. Louis, back when St. Louis was the conference finals a year and a half ago. But, it's one of those things. I think he belongs, and I've gone back and forth on this for a while, but I don't, again, going back to my point about Glenn Anderson, I don't get how Tkachuk, who has more goals and played in a less offensive-friendly era, is out while Anderson is in. And if you want to use the Stanley Cup argument, then that's kind of bullshit because, again, he had playing with Wayne Gretzky and those Edmonton Oilers teams. And then the second best Swede in the history of the Ottawa Senators, Daniel Alfredsson, is not obviously getting him on the first ballot this year, but I think next year there's a really good chance for him to get in. I think all the hockey writers are pretty much consensus that he belongs. 400 goals, over 1,100 points, 100 playoff points in his career. Yeah, I think he belongs. And again, playing in the same division as the Bruins, I got to see enough of them. Got to see him light up the Bruins like a Christmas tree a few times. So, instrumental in Ottawa's run to the Stanley Cup final in 2007, 14 goals that year in the playoffs. Really, when he was clicking, the Ottawa Senators were, really on fire. And, big reason why they had a lot of the success they did in the, early to mid-2000s. Really became that team's franchise player and really established himself as one of the elite, players in the game for an extended period of time. So, again, I was never the biggest Alfredsson fan, but I think you look at his body of work. I mean, again, I got to see him do mean things to the Bruins pretty consistently. And, what he meant to that franchise in Ottawa and how he really helped establish Ottawa as a legitimate contender for, a number of years. I think he belongs. I think he gets in. And I think 2018 will be his Hall of Fame class. Now that we've gotten to players that will be eligible for the first time in 2018, let's go through some explicit, solid no's. Starting with Daniel Briea. Absolutely not a Hall of Famer. Sorry, Danny. Briea's former Philly teammate Kimmo Timonen. Absolutely not. Evgeny Nabokov, 353 career wins is nice, but you are not a Hall of Famer. Sorry. Martin St. Louis. Not only do I think St. Louis is a Hall of Famer, I think he belongs in on the first ballot. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, his number... All right. 1,000 points, 2 scoring titles, 1 MVP trophy, won a Stanley Cup in 2004 with the Lightning, averaged better than a point a game in the last year of the dead puck era, I might add. 20 points in 18 games on Tampa's Cinderella run to the Eastern Conference Finals 2011, where they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Boston Bruins. I gotta get that in there. Instrumental in the Rangers going on their first run of the Stanley Cup final since the Clinton administration in 2014. I don't like the way he handled his exit from Tampa, but I just look at this guy, and the fact that he was an undrafted free agent that overcame so much to get where he is only adds to it. Won the Lady Byng Trophy 3 times, Art Ross twice, like I said, Hart Trophy, led the league in plus-minus 2003, 2004. I know that's an irrelevant stat. I'm just throwing that out there. Instrumental in Tampa becoming the team and the franchise that they are. He belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he should get in on the first ballot. I do not think this is up for debate. You can throw whatever you want at me. I think Martin St. Louis was one of the best wingers of the last 20 years in the league, and he should walk right into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. I think keeping him out and making him wait for whatever fucking reason. The guy the guy waited long enough to make it to the show, much less. And when he got there, he kind of lit it on fire. With his playmaking abilities, his abilities to score goals, and just despite being 5'2" or however tall he is, one of the best players the last 20 years. I think he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he walks right in, and I think you are wrong if you disagree with me. Sorry. This is an absolute layup right here. Marty Brodeur, the most decorated goalie in the history of the NHL. You look at the all-time wins leader, 691 wins. Seems like he won the Vezina every year, whether or not he deserved it towards the end. Three-time Stanley Cup champion with the Devils, Calder Trophy winner. I mean, I don't have to talk about his accolades. I just think anyone that's ever watched a minute of hockey in their lives can go, yeah, that Brodeur, he belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And again, I put the Blues picture there as kind of a joke, but you look at just how much he meant to that Devils franchise and how he really established New Jersey as not only a legitimate contender but like a legitimate franchise too. I mean, you look at Wayne Gretzky called him the Mickey Mouse franchise at one point, and Brodeur, he got the last laugh in a lot of series. If teams that overlooked him, you talk about the trap, you talk about Jacques Lemaire, yada yada yada. But the bottom line is Brodeur made the stops when he had to. And, New Jersey isn't the team that we know it to be now without him. This is the easiest one in the class. If you don't think Martin Brodeur should be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, then you're a fucking moron. That's not even a subjective opinion. It's objective. Best goalie. I mean, my thing is best goalie of all time is Dominik Hasek, but the most decorated goalie of all time walks in on the first ballot unanimously. So, my final 2018 Hall of Fame class, I got Daniel Alfredsson, Martin Brodeur, Martin St. Louis, and then Theo Fleury as my 4 players. So we'll see what happens, but I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Hopefully I get this one right because I kind of put a ton of work into it. So anyway, that's all I got. So to the Power Play with CJ. Stay tuned for more episodes throughout the season and beyond. Later, guys.